You're locked into the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service today at callrogers.com. Get ready for double coverage with Nick Pierce and Pat Kelly, the weekly podcast that takes you inside Flames football and around the nation before game day. Now, alongside former Flames All-Conference wide receiver Pat Kelly, here's your host, Nick Pierce.
And the Flames are back in the win column. Hello, everyone. Welcome back into double coverage. Man, do we have a show today and a whole lot to get to as we recap a crazy Tuesday night at Williams Stadium in Lynchburg. Liberty gets it done 30-27 over New Mexico State. And the Flames are now 2-1 in Conference USA. So much to talk about from that ball game, though. I'm Nick Pierce. He's Pat Kelly. No, he is not the Aggie mascot, although the mustache looks pretty sweet. Welcome into double coverage here on the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling. And we're going to start there. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, Pat, but, man, I got to call you out right away on the mustache here. I mean, I thought – when is mustache month normally? Isn't it like November around
November.
here? But yeah, no November. But you're getting in the spirit early here,
Nick. It's like all great athletes. You've got to hone your craft. You need to practice. You need to get yourself in shape. I'm just getting my hair follicles in shape and ready for November.
You had the sweet dad beard working last week with just a little hint of a few grays in there, but. Yeah, that's pretty stellar stuff, right? You just need to put the cowboy hat on and get you a six-shooter, and you'll look just like the Aggie mascot.
Well, Nick, I know I mentioned it to you before the game yesterday, but I took my daughter to school, and I still had the full beard. And when I went to pick her up, she ran over to the fence, and she looked at me, and she said, "Daddy?" And I said, "Yes, Quinn." And she said, "Did the green gorilla take your hair?" It's a book that we read her about the green gorilla. And I said, "No, the green gorilla didn't take Dad's hair." And she goes, "Well, what happened to you?" So she was very confused why I had a beard and why I now have a mustache.
That's so good. If you're listening to this, just the audio version, you can find the video, of course, on the Liberty Flames YouTube page, and then you can see what we're talking about, or just go back and watch the broadcast from last night on the ESPN Plus pregame coverage of Liberty and New Mexico State. Wow. You know what? All I can come out with here, and we're going to work through so much of this, but I think I even heard this quote last night in the media center. You play to win the game. It's the Herm Edwards classic line. You play to win the game. And Liberty did, in fact, win the football game. I don't know if you maybe call it a tale of two halves. That's a little cliche. Maybe it's fitting, though. But Liberty won the game, 30-27. Now 19-3 in the month of October under head coach Jamie Chadwell. Now 7-2 against New Mexico State all time. Flames, most importantly, moved to 2-1 in Conference USA. That was, Alan York called it several times on radio the other night, a swing game. And it was. Both teams were 1-1. And you're right in the thick of the conference title hunt right now to get to the conference title game. Long way to go. 5 games left. Western Kentucky loses to FIU the other night. Chaos ensues, right? They're now 3-1, so now the Hilltoppers have a loss. And a couple of big ones. First time scoring 30 points this year for the Flames. Now, obviously, that wasn't all on the offense, but they got to the 30-point mark. And now 12-0 under head coach Jamie Chadwell when scoring 30 points. Now, I know that there's a lot on your mind here, but when you look at those things and you start to look at the big picture, that come from behind win in the closing seconds on Tuesday night did a whole lot for this team from that standpoint, and maybe just a confidence standpoint too.
Yeah, I mean, you were on the Schneid. Was it Green Day that had the song "Wake Me Up When September Ends"? Like,
right? Yeah, good
thankfully,
call back there.
Yeah, thankfully September is over. It was ugly, but this is one of those things, Nick. I know we talked about my senior season. We started the year 1-4, and then you rattled off and you finished the season 6-5. I think it can absolutely be a moment. You had a big win last week. Again, it wasn't pretty. It was scrappy. You were gritty. Same thing last night. It was not a sexy game by any means, but you found a way to win. And I think that's the messaging in the room. It doesn't matter how it got done. we got it done. And I think it can certainly be a building block for the rest of the year because this team is now seeing, hey, doesn't matter that we played an absolutely dog trash game. We were able to find a way to get this thing done. Um, Several times last year, this team was able to overcome some, double digit deficits. I think that's a huge part of the coaching of the culture. If they can keep building on that, this team can really make a strong run to end the year. But yeah, ugly game last night. You're happy to get the win, and more than anything, you're like, hey, this can really catapult us moving forward.
And I was on the sideline, and there was, when things looked bad, there was no finger pointing, there was no infighting. Guys were pulling on the same rope, which is what you want to see. You made the point from the culture, the coaching standpoint. Another stat I wanted to throw out here as well, something that if you're keeping track here, big picture again. Despite the 1-4 start, Flames are now 3-4 on the year. They're halfway to bowl eligibility. So when you look at that, in the last 5 years, 15 FBS teams have started 1-4 and still made it to a bowl game. The most recent, Miami of Ohio last year, they went 1-4 to start the season, then went on a 7-game winning streak, got to the MAC championship game, lost, and then beat Colorado State in the Arizona Bowl. Western Kentucky was the last CUSA team to do it. They started 1-4 in 2020. Remember, actually lost to Liberty in the season opener. That was Malik Willis's debut, and ended up getting to the Lending Tree Bowl that year. So this is not out of the realm of possibility by any stretch. I know I've thrown out the conference championship game numbers, the number of one-loss and two-loss teams that have played for the title. There's a whole lot in front of this team, and the win on Tuesday night did a lot of good. That said, and you've pointed it out as well, this was not Liberty's best game. The outcome was great, but outgained 388 yards to 293, outrushed 146 to 114. Mind you, a New Mexico State team that was dead last in the country in rushing yards per game at 51. They put up 146 on the ground. Flames commit 3 turnovers. They go 3 for 10 on third down, allowed 21 unanswered points in the second half, and lost the explosives game as well. Gave up 10 explosive plays, only produced 5. That's something that coaches hit on a lot. All those things to say, you don't win that football game. Except they did. And they did because I think in large part they took advantage of the opportunities that New Mexico State gave them. And we always talk about the forgotten phase, right, Pat? It's special teams. Special teams reared its ugly head or beautiful face, whichever side of the fence you're on Tuesday night.
They really did. We said before coming on here, and it's kind of the old adage that, special teams alone can't win you a game, but it can definitely lose you a game. And in the case for New Mexico State, I mean, they just had a handful of blunders on the special teams unit. We mentioned the muff punt that turned into a touchdown. They muffed another punt that turned into a field goal. So there's 10 points right there. You've got a 96-yard kickoff return for touchdown. So now we're up to 17 special teams points. We talk about toward the end of the game when New Mexico State's trying to make that final drive down the field, and they actually strung together a pretty darn good drive. Kickoff goes past the kickoff returner. You're probably looking at having the ball at the 35 or the 40 if he's able to field that kick and get any bit of a return. So, the special teams gods were smiling on Liberty, or they were just throwing stones at New Mexico State. But great resolve by this Liberty team, and I don't know that I've ever watched a game that had that many special teams blow-ups.
Well, I mean, you referenced some of them, and I know Flames Nation, there's frustration. There certainly was in the second half last night with how the game was going, how things looked during that 21-0 run that New Mexico State went on. And there's still frustration because of what we said. It wasn't pretty. But can you imagine being on the other side of the fence today and being Tony Sanchez, the second-year head coach at New Mexico State? They get off to the 2-0 start this year. They got a chance to get to to get to 2-1 in the league. They've got Liberty on the ropes for a second straight year. A lead in the fourth quarter. Inside of a minute, Liberty has to go 92 yards on that final drive. 13 plays, 92 yards. The previous 3 drives combined totaled 13 plays. Liberty was not moving the football at all in the second half. And New Mexico State's defense can't hold them. And the Flames end up going 92 yards. Ethan Vasko, who had struggled on the night, turned the ball over 3 times, 2 interceptions. On the final drive, he's 7 of 7 for 66 yards. Connects with Dante Lee Jr. 5 times on that drive alone. And Evan Dickens coming back off of the concussion with the touchdown scamper there around the left side at the end. Great block by Austin Henderson on that play as well, by the way, really on the defensive end. And the Flames end up scoring the go-ahead touchdown there. But how do you think Tony Sanchez feels today after letting the Flames get away? We talked about play to win the game earlier. There's another one from Dennis Green, God rest his soul. They were who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
I mean, that's a great callback. Perfect callback. I mean, if you're Sanchez, there are no moral victories, but I know I said this to you. Aside from those few special teams blunders, which you have to factor in, I really feel like New Mexico State outplayed Liberty for the entirety of that game. And then the lights are brightest. They've got to go 92 yards. And to Coach Sanchez's credit, what you saw from that defense on that last drive, they're giving you free access on the outside. They're saying, we're going to make you go 93 yards and assume that at some point you're either going to make a penalty, an error, or like we're just not going to let you drive all the way down. They had a top 10 red zone defense in the country coming into the game. And throughout the majority of that game, Liberty got into the red zone and they were forced to kick field goals. And so if I'm Sanchez, I'm trusting my defense. I'll give you those short throws and make you drive the length of the field. It was the one time
they had a 4th and 5 at Liberty's 39 before that drive, and Sanchez was asked about after the game, "Did you think about going for it?" And we talked about it too, for all the reasons that you're saying. The way that the defense had played, Liberty's inability to move the ball in the second half to that point. No, you kick it away, you make them drive the length of the field.
Absolutely. I mean, Diego Pavia is not walking through that door. If you've got Pavia, then yeah, sure, you're going for it on 4th and 5, and you're probably going to score. But that's exactly right. Your defense has been stout all night. The only points you've given up, like we alluded to, has pretty much just been special teams. Make them prove that they can go out and do it, and the quarterback's not going to turn the ball over because he's been giving it to you all night long. So I don't fault Sanchez there at all. I would have made the same call. It was just essentially the one time all night that the defense was not able to rise up when it was needed. And then kudos to Liberty for going out there and executing.
And the Flames get that kickoff return for a touchdown from Juju Gray as well. First kickoff return for a touchdown by a Liberty Flame in 3 years. You got to go back to November 19th, 2022 at Williams Stadium. Shedver Lewis, 97 yards, house call against Virginia Tech that day. But I said, how does Tony Sanchez feel? How about the special teams coordinator, Nelson Fishback, for New Mexico State? How does he feel? I mean, 2 muffs. You talk about the turnovers for Liberty. 2 muffed punts for New Mexico State that resulted in turnovers. Short porch. Liberty gets 10 points off of that. The kickoff return for a touchdown that they allowed. And then let's talk about the winning plays for Liberty. How about after the touchdown, and I'll tie it back to special teams here in a minute. After the touchdown, Flames get penalized 15 yards on just a bonehead, just not a good decision at all by Jupe Engbers. Shoves the New Mexico State player in the back, shoves him down 15 yards. We
just
also
a complete lack of awareness.
No reason to do it.
How does this happen?
No reason
time
to
and
do
time
it.
again.
And Coach Chadwell was livid, as he should have been. Flames have to kick off, from the 25 at that point, or whatever it was. And Max Morgan just absolutely uncorks a missile down the field. And I forget who the return man was. Was it King for New Mexico State? Whoever it was, misplays it. Or I think meant to let it bounce in front of him. He was going to try to play it on the bounce. But if you run up and field that thing clean, Pat, he's got daylight in front of him because the coverage team hadn't had time to get down the field yet. Instead, it rolls back into the end zone for a touchback.
Well, and get this, they they still had, I think, two timeouts at the time. They had to burn one, like, kind of foolishly, before
I
a
think that was on a
play.
substitution issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, so you're looking at a minimum, say you're at the 40-yard line with two timeouts and you've got to go 25 yards. You've got Liberty right where you want them. And we did a pregame segment on these kickers who had been, to date had really caught a hot streak. And Hawk, the kicker for New Mexico State, had been pretty good this year. So, I mean, just a total blunder on their part. So now instead of being at the 40 with two timeouts, you're feeling pretty good. You're at the 25, you've got one timeout, and you've basically got to drive yourself down, whatever it would be, 50 yards to try and get yourself in good position for a field goal.
Yeah. And as it is, they still got themselves in position for a field goal. The Flames, middle of the field, defensively, a little shaky last night. And then they gave up that 32-yard pass play to Gavin Harris. Harris with the most yards and catches for a tight end against Liberty this year. Four catches, 62 yards, the 32-yarder on what I thought was a really good throw by Logan Fife. When I went back and watched it again, I mean, he put that thing on the money. I asked Coach Chadwell about the pass defense in post-game last night, particularly some of those plays that went across the middle. And there were a couple drops, too. I mean, they could have had more. Specifically that play, though, Flames were in cover two, a cover two man. So you got man coverage with the corners, and then you got two safeties back. They're basically the home run protectors. I don't know. Does it matter if Brylan Green's back there in that situation, Pat? When you think back on it in retrospect?
Well, we can let's educate our listeners a little bit. So in cover two, unless you've got a backer dropping, which would be a Tampa 2 type of a look where you're shutting down the middle of the field, the weakness of a cover two is the middle of the field.
Right.
And so New Mexico State made the decision, we have enough time. We can throw over the middle, we can clock it, or we can use our last timeout and go get this field goal. And they darn near executed it. But to your point, I think the only thing, if Brylan Green is in the game, I guess I have two thoughts. He either can potentially get there a step earlier and break that pass up, which who's to know if that happens, or he potentially is in a position where he's not letting that throw be made anyway, and then your defense is able to get home. But with how perfect of a throw that was, I just got to tip my cap to the quarterback and to the receiver that made the catch, because that was bang, bang. Ball into his hands, secured it, went down. That was a great throw and catch.
Flames were also without Joseph Carter at that point in the game last night, and that's injuries. I mean, Green, obviously, we knew he was going to be out until, at least the Delaware game coming up here in a couple weeks. He looks like he's getting better, by the way. I saw Brylan walking around without the boot pregame on the field. He was down there on the sideline. Joseph Carter, though, that was tough, and that one looks like it could be significant. He had a walking boot on his left foot, crutches after the game. Coach Chadwell wasn't real optimistic about his return. But you never know. We'll see here in a couple days after he gets reevaluated. So going back to that play, not that I think Carter would have been covering the tight end right there necessarily. I think it was Eli August that had the coverage. Eldrick Griffin got there, bang, bang, like you said, to deliver the hit. But anyway, they get into field goal range at this point. And Ryan Hawk, who's been really good, especially on 40-plus yards, anywhere between that 40-49 range, he'd been pretty good. I think it was like 4 of 5 on the year, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's right. Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4 of 5 from 40 to 49 on the year.
Mm.
He sets up for a 47-yarder, and it wasn't close. He pushed that thing way to the left, and I just misstruck it, I guess, because the snap was clean. But wow, I mean, like you said, maybe the special teams guys were just smiling on the Flames.
That's all I can think of. And you truly have to kind of feel bad for some of those New Mexico. Both of your punt returners. You had one guy that muffed the one, and then they put someone else in, presumably saying, "Hey, it's not your night. We need a guy back there that's going to catch this thing." And then the same exact thing happened. So you feel bad for those guys. Feel awful for the special teams coach as well.
It's a them problem. Nobody's going to feel bad for the Flames. I get what you're saying though from a football perspective, but from a Flames fan perspective, I ain't feeling bad for anybody right now.
No, you feel great. You're going into a bye week, getting a win that you probably shouldn't have gotten, a chance to get healthy. I mean, you're essentially on cloud 9 here.
Tony Sanchez after the game, New Mexico State head coach, quotable. I don't know if I've ever been involved in a game where the amount of opportunities we gave Liberty tonight was egregious. This one's extremely disappointing. I get it. Flames gave them a lot of opportunities too, though. I mean, talk about it with the turnovers, the strip sack on Ethan Vasko, the two interceptions. Not very good throws on either of those. But let's talk about Ethan Vasko here a little bit, Pat, because I think it's a consistency thing because we see the capability, we see what's in there. We saw it on the last drive of the game last night. Completes his last 7 throws. He's in sync. And okay, we talk about the coverage, New Mexico State. He's still got to make the throws, and which he's not always done this year, in some of the quick game and the short routes. We talked about that. He makes the throws. He gets in a rhythm, some confidence going after what's been a tough night. It's just, I think what the frustrating part, and it's not just with him, it's with this team, is just the lack of consistency. Yeah, and I think that's what's so frustrating is you see it in there. You see what they're capable of, but they cannot put it together for 4 quarters for whatever reason.
It really is interesting. And, Vasco's not a Drew Brees type who's going to complete 75% of his passes. In his career, he's kind of between that 54 and 59%. So he's not a pure elite passer. I think he's a guy that the game is best when he's kind of able to play off schedule. I think you've seen some of his most explosive plays. When a play breaks down, he uses his legs and can either tuck it and run or allows his guys in a scramble drill to get open and then makes the throw. So I was talking with someone last night and I said, it's interesting because typically quarterbacks are most effective when they're on time, when they're on schedule, the ball's coming out quick. It almost feels the opposite for him where he's got to kind of run around a little bit, let things break down, use his athleticism. And you saw that a little bit last night. Outside of that last drive when the ball truly was coming out after that foot hit, third step in his drop back and was coming out on time on the slants, on the out routes, just really wasn't in a rhythm. And I know I've been a little critical of play calling and kind of the offense so far this year. One area where I would say, the coaches probably need a little bit of grace here is it's hard to call a game plan when you're ebbing and flowing that inconsistently at the quarterback position.
100%.
So
100%.
I think that certainly is something that they've struggled with. And you did see it definitely throughout the game last night. Fortunately, when it mattered the most, they strung a beautiful drive together.
And Chadwell mentioned that, I think, going into the UTEP game, too, just talking about the play calling thing. He said, look, when you get a holding penalty or an incompletion on an easy throw or whatever, you don't get something blocked up and now you're behind the sticks. As a play caller, you start to think instead of what makes sense is the next play to call, it's what can I call that we can actually execute? And then you start to get a little timid on things that you practiced maybe during the week and you've hit on, and now you're starting to think, what can I call in this game at this moment that's going to get us some positive yards? And it gets you out of sync. And I think that's one thing we talked about last week at UTEP, watching the opening drive of that game, the first couple of drives. It really felt like that was the first time that the Flames were really in sync. Willie Korn as a play caller, Ethan Vasko delivering the ball, Flames, running the ball last week. And then, obviously that last drive last night or Tuesday night, probably the drive of the year. I mean, it was balanced. You got some run, you got some pass. And again, I'll go back. We talk about the winning plays from last night. Yes, New Mexico State outplayed Liberty for a majority of that game. They outgained them. We've gone through all that. Liberty made winning plays when they had to make them. And that was one of the focal points going into this game was finish drives, finish blocks, finish. That was what the Flames talked about all week. And I go back to the block by Austin Henderson on the touchdown to just get in there. He just threw his body into the defensive end. It maybe wasn't, I don't know, maybe it wasn't textbook or whatever, but he did enough. He finished the play, and he sprung Dickens around the left side. Winning play, Max Morgan, already talked about that on the kickoff. You don't think about those things until they happen. Christian Bodner had a couple of big plays defensively on the last drive, deflected or dislodged the ball down their sideline before the chunk play to Harris. And then on even the drive before that, I think it was a third down play where they're taking a shot at the end zone. And I believe the Flames might have been playing cover one at that point. and it's Bodner one-on-one out there with the receiver. I think it was King, and well defended. They don't get in the end. So it's that old thing where you talk about 4 or 5 plays decide the game, and the Flames just seem to come up on the right end of those plays on Tuesday night.
And it's rare that it works out in your favor like that after you have not capitalized throughout an entire game where you're outgained, you're so poor on third down, your red zone scoring hasn't been great. Again, you fumble one time in the pocket, you throw 2 interceptions. They turn those turnovers into 14 points. It's rare that it works in your favor that you basically are outgained in every category and you haven't played well and you're able to come away with a win. So, again, going into the bye week, you're saying we kind of got away with one here. We can coach some of this stuff up, but hey, we were resilient. We were gritty last night.
And I think that's another thing too. To me, the biggest thing with the bye week is just trying to get healthy and just trying to get some guys, trying to get a Brylan Green back. Hopefully get Caden Williams back. He was out with I think concussion symptoms the other night. That came up late after the UTEP game. You're just trying to get maybe your offensive line. You get a little more depth there. I know Trey Badowski and Jack Tucker. Tucker hasn't really been hurt, but Badowski has. Those guys played limited snaps the other night. You're trying to still develop a little more depth there. For me, it's more about the depth and the health because at this point we're 7 games in. Your habits kind of defined you at this point. Like, I don't know. I mean, yes, I hear it. It's fixable. This is fixable. That's fixable. At 7 games in, I don't know how much is fixable. I think that at this point, you kind of are who you are. And it's going to be an inconsistent look to this team, probably for the rest of the year. Maybe you can hang your hat on defense at times, special teams. That seems to have improved, right? In the kicking game, the field goal unit for sure. But I just think that you're in for the next 5 games are all winnable and they're all losable. And this is going to be a team that's probably going to have to grit some of these games out and just find ways to make those 4 or 5 plays throughout the game. Liberty could win. Like I said, they could win the next 5 and go 8-4. At the same time, they could lose 4 or 5 of those games. So I just think you just got to buckle up and just ride with this team and see what they can deliver. But the one good thing that I will say is talking to these guys after the game, the fight's there. The want to is there. It'd be one thing if guys were just showing up and just doing their own thing and going in different directions and just going through the motion. I don't see any of that. Hey, listen to Damon Harmon talk after the game last night. I didn't sense that. Evan Dickens, talking about that final drive, so that was probably the best drive he's ever been a part of. Vaughn Blue talking to the media last week about Ethan Vasko. He called him a gladiator. I mean, just the way that he leads in the huddle. For all the inconsistencies, there's some intangibles there that who knows what the ceiling is for this team.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say just about the bye week, you kind of break this into 2 parts, one as a player and one as a coach. When we were playing, we always saw the bye week as a chance to kind of re-energize. You're going to get a couple days off. So, you know what? You're going to go in for rehab, stuff like that, but you are not going to be going out on the practice field every single day. So you get a little bit of time to recharge. So I think from a player perspective, you're going to see guys coming back energized. You just came off of a win. We had a couple days off. And then from the coaching perspective, and I'm hoping that we see this continue to develop, is you're able to self-scout and you're able to say, again, here's what we do well. Here's what we didn't do well. Here are some wrinkles that we can throw in. You always talk about huge improvements between week 1 and week 2. Very similarly, you see improvements. You've played, you have a bye week, and it's a chance to basically sit back and say, all right, we've got some time. We don't have anybody this week. Let's take a really focused look at ourselves. So I'm interested to see kind of from a coaching perspective what might change and what we might continue to see from this offense and defense and special teams moving forward.
And that's a great point because now here late in the year, maybe you're not quote unquote fixing a lot of things so much as you can kind of hone in now with a big sample size through 7 weeks and say, what do we do really well? And let's really put our time and our focus into mastering those things. Let's rep those things in practice. Like you said, maybe throw in one or two other things here, but let's really get really, really good at what we're good at. Let's perfect that and see if those things can take you across the finish line here at the end.
I'm excited, Nick, just because, this team has historically, it's been Caden Salter and Quentin Cooley for the last 2 years, and that was your identity. You run between the tackles. So from an offensive perspective, there is a little bit of changing of the guard. So I'm excited to see as they continue to kind of grow into what the identity of this team is. And that evolves over the course of the season. So again, another benefit of the bye is to say, maybe this is who we are. Maybe we are the team that now throws it 32, 33 times a game because we have the weapons on the outside and we do certain things better than we did in 2022. So again, a lot to look forward to, I think, and a lot for fans to kind of be excited about to say, how has this team evolved and how are they going to continue evolving?
Stat of the game. I'll give you this one too, as we start to wind things down here. You think back to Liberty history, and I love these freaky parallels. Ethan Vasko on Tuesday night, 3 turnovers, completes his last 7 passes on the game-winning drive. 36 years ago to the day, another quarterback for Liberty did the exact same thing. Robbie Justino against Eastern Michigan committed 3 turnovers, completed his last 7 throws on the game-winning drive, the last one going to Eric Green for the go-ahead touchdown, and Liberty beat Eastern Michigan on the road for its first ever FBS win. So we'll go ahead and put the bow on the thing right there.
Who knew that all we needed to take our blood pressure and our heart medication was to schedule a game on October 14th, commit 3 turnovers, and have a barn burner of a game?
Oh, it's just like that, son. Maybe it's the special teams gods. Maybe it's Liberty Flames history. Who knows? But next one for the Flames coming up on November 1st, Liberty in Delaware. That's homecoming weekend. Looking forward to seeing all the former players. By the way, you mentioned Quentin Cooley a minute ago. He was on the sideline on Tuesday night, so shout out to Q. Good to see him back at Liberty.
Should have given him a helmet.
Yeah, I thought about that at one point. Get him a helmet.
Can you strap up and get out there?
Yeah, no kidding. I think he's still got a few yards left in him. November 1, Liberty in Delaware, 3:30 kickoff at Williams Stadium in Lynchburg. Homecoming weekend, Hall of Fame weekend. And shout out as well to your friend and mine, your former teammate, Mike Brown, will be inducted into the Liberty Athletics Hall of Fame. We'll see if we can get Mike here on the podcast sometime before the end of the year as well. Doing his thing right now as the assistant coach, wide receivers coach at Notre Dame. They're in the middle of their season as well. So a whole lot to look forward to. And also, that's the Manny Rojas return. Defensive coordinator for the Blue Hens will make his return trip to Williams Stadium on November 1. I don't think Manny's going to join our show before then.
Probably not. But I've got some stories from when he was a strength coach when I was at Liberty, but we'll save that for off air.
Oh, I look forward to hearing them, and maybe we can slip one or two in on Delaware Week. This has been the Double Coverage Podcast on the Liberty Flames podcast channel, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service at callrogers.com. Out of time on this week's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Whole lot to get through. We'll come at you again next week. Pat, as always, it's a blast, man. Enjoyed it.
Always love it. Always better after a win.
Definitely. For Pat Kelly, I'm Nick Pierce. This has been Double Coverage. So long, everybody.
You've been listening to Double Coverage with Nick Pierce and Pat Kelly. Hit the subscribe button and listen each week to this and all podcasts on the Liberty Flames podcast channel from Van Wagner on the Liberty Flames Sports Network.